Carla Espinosa, and I'll be your host today on behalf of Hispanotech. But before I continue, I would like to thank Yelp for making this event also possible. Also, thank you for joining us in this panel discussion, Pathways to Leadership. So we hope you enjoy it and you're able to take with you some insights that will help you in your path towards leadership. So moving forward, I would like to review with you our event etiquette tips. So this session will be recorded. Please turn on your camera to give consent or turn off your camera to object consent. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please use the chat. And also please keep your microphone muted to avoid any distractions during the presentation. And well, at the end of the session, we will share a link to a survey. Your feedback is really important to us to know how we did and to keep improving our events. So now Hispanotech, who are we? So Hispanotech is not a not-for-profit organization whose mission is to help Hispanic professionals integrate and advance their careers in Canada. We are based in Toronto, but because of COVID, we have gone online. So everyone can take advantage of them. As a reminder, please keep your microphones muted, please. So how do we accomplish this mission? So it should like skills development seminars, volunteering opportunities, networking events, mentoring programs, and many more. So be sure to follow us in social media. So next, I will hand over to Tenzin, who will talk a little bit more about Yelp. Tenzin.
Thank you, Carla. Hi, everyone. My name is Tenzin, and I work for Yelp. I run events and partnerships for our engineering and product teams at the company. I've been at Yelp for about 4 years now. I used to live in San Francisco, and now I live in Los Angeles, California. So if you don't know too much about Yelp, we are a tech company that connects people with great local businesses. We pretty much provide a one-stop platform for consumers to discover, connect, and transact with local businesses of various sizes. Our headquarters are based in San Francisco, but we have offices in many other places, including Toronto, Hamburg, London, New York, and more. If you're interested in learning more about Yelp, Yelp culture, jobs, and interviewing, Maria from my team is also joining us here today. And later on in the event, she'll be talking more about all these great things. And then lastly, I just want to say that we're super excited to be here today and to be partnering with Hispanotech for the first time. I definitely want to give them a big shout out because they're super hardworking and caring. So it's been great working with them. And also want to give a shout out to everyone joining us here today. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Carla.
Thank you very much, Tenzin. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we can organize more events together. Yeah, great. Okay, so now the agenda for tonight. So we will have our panel discussion and following it with a Q&A session. And at the end, well, we will have a Yelp pitch. We'll have Maria from the recruiting team, and she will talk about engineering and product job openings and the interview processes at Yelp, and also followed by a Q&A. So that will be our agenda for tonight. Okay, so now, so let's meet our panelists for tonight. They're working in Yelp Canada as engineer managers, all from different teams. So we have Dee Casey from the Ads UX platform team. She works with her team to enable the development of new and diverse ad formats that help deliver value to advertisers, users. We have Sodiq Fagbola on the services discovery team. The team is responsible for effectively connecting consumers to various services business around them. And Robert Fernandez is on the compute infrastructure platform experience team, where he supports a team that provides the underlying platform and infrastructure to Yelp's developers so they can focus on delivering value to users. So now I will hand over to Brenda Avila, our panel moderator for tonight. So she's a volunteer at Hispanotech, and she's a director of networking events. She's a certified project manager on the path to twist her career and get into the legal tech field. And she's an active paralegal student at Sheridan College. So Brenda, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you, Carla. Yes, today I will be the moderator for this amazing panel discussion. So I want to mention the dynamic for this panel. While each panelist will have 1 minute 30 seconds to answer a question. There will be around 8 questions. When the green color appears on the screen, will indicate you have 1 minute. When a yellow color appears on the screen, will indicate you have only 30 seconds left to answer the question. When a red color appears on the screen, will indicate the time is over or ended, but if you still want to add something to your answer, you can do it, so feel free. Well, for attendees, please be aware that at the end of this panel, it will be a Q&A session, so you can ask panelists any specific question. In the meantime, enjoy the panel and try to catch as much information as you can from this wonderful panel. Let's start with my favorite question, the which one that will allow us to know more about Dee, Sodiq, and Robert, such as who you are and your role at Yelp. It will be the same question for Dee, Sodiq, and Robert. I will start with Dee. Can you tell me more about you, your role, and your team at Yelp?
Sure, yeah. My name is Dee. I'm based in Montreal. A little bit about my background. I don't have actually the typical educational background that most engineers and engineering managers have. I did most of my schooling in the design realm, and it was learning to design websites that I fell in love with building them and ultimately pursued a career in web development. Prior to joining Yelp, I worked across various industries, including e-commerce, marketing, as both a developer and a manager. Now I'm the engineering manager of the Ads UX platform team at Yelp, where I'm lucky enough to work with a really awesome team of full stack engineers. And we help enable development of new and diverse ad formats that not only deliver value to Yelp, but also to the users and to the advertisers. So it's a little bit more about me.
Thank you, Dee. Very interesting. Now, Sodiq, can you tell me more about you, your role, and your team at Yelp?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sodiq. Currently living in London, Ontario, in Canada. Before now, I used to live in Germany, in Hamburg. I've had experience in working for different organizations across different problem space. I currently manage a team at Yelp called the Services Discovery Team. Essentially, my team is responsible for helping the Yelp consumers connect to great local businesses and also to multi-location businesses as well. The way we do this is essentially showing the value propositions of the businesses to the consumers in a way that they can easily understand what the values of the businesses are, and they are able to connect to those businesses easily.
Thank you, Sodiq. Finally, Robert, can you tell me more about you, your role, and your team at Yelp?
Sure. So I'm Rob. I'm based out of Montreal. I'm an engineering manager at Yelp for an infrastructure and platform team. Our focus is to improve developer experience with regards to the infrastructure and platforms that we provide. I support a team of 7 engineers. They're primarily software developers and some SREs. I'm fairly new to Yelp, having joined in June, but it's been a fantastic experience right from the get-go. And I'm really happy that I made the switch. My role here at Yelp is twofold. The first part is to enable my team to develop leading edge infrastructure and platform solutions. The second part is to help coach and develop the individuals on my team to achieve their career aspirations.
Thank you, Rob. Well, moving forward to our next question, it will be the same organization. I will start with Dee. Dee, what are some reasons you pursued a leadership role, and what was your path to get here?
Sure. Funnily enough, leadership wasn't actually in my original game plan. It wasn't something I sought out. It was rather something sort of I ended up sort of falling into. I really loved the work I did as a front end developer. I didn't really see a reason to seek out another path. But pretty early in my career, I actually joined a really small team that was actually managed by a manager that had no technical background. So I actually found myself in a position where my voice had a lot more weight. And I actually ended up stepping up as the tech lead on that team, and then ultimately became the manager of the team. It wasn't sort of what I intended to do. I sort of stumbled into it. Following that, I did that for a while. Following that, I actually switched roles, I switched companies, and I pivoted back to being a developer. And it was only in that switch that I realized how much I missed being a manager, how much I missed leading a team. And it was sort of there that, unbeknownst to me, that my plans had changed, my goals had changed. So that is, I guess, when I realized that I wanted to pursue a role in leadership. I'd already sort of done it, but that's when I realized that's what I wanted. I still miss being a dev sometimes. But I love what I do. I think it's incredibly rewarding to help build a team, to watch them grow. Yeah. So that's sort of my path.
Thank you, Dee. So inspirational. Now, Sodiq, what are some reasons you pursued a leadership role, and what was your path to get here?
Thanks, Brenda. That's a good question. For me, my background is in computer science, so I have this curiosity around how to solve problems. And as an engineer, I tend to think more about like solving the problems logically, which is, if you think about software, like how do I write this algorithm to be really fast? How do I optimize for minimal resource? And how do I make sure the algorithm scales at scale? So all of these thoughts, although like you can't really see managing people as though you're building a software, but again, like in these two words, some things are like very applicable. One of them being, how do we make sure the people and the process around what we're doing as a business can scale? And how do we make sure we configure all of these things appropriately? So at the point in my career, I realized, well, what's more important than building the right things? What's more important than building things right is building the right things, because then like this shift in paradigm from making sure you build the right things as the software engineer to showing your team and showing people that work around you how they can build this thing and invest in themselves as well, was one thing that led me into taking up this role.
Thank you, Sodiq. Rob, please go ahead and tell us, what are some reasons you pursued a leadership role, and what was your path to get here?
Sure, Brenda. So prior to Yelp, I spent 20 years working in various roles at a telecom company, 13 of which as an individual contributor in a technical capacity. I started off my career as a software developer. I spent most of my time actually as a systems integrator. And then towards the end of that, I evolved into a solution architect. As an integrator and architect, I designed and deployed solutions for our customers. And this helped me grow because I was not only expected to do my technical duties, but also to work directly with the customers. And that allowed me to learn a little bit about stakeholder management. I think the most important takeaway that I had from that was learning to be honest and transparent in order to build trust. After this, a leadership opportunity presented itself where I joined a new development unit as a project manager. And then a couple of years later, I became an engineering manager in the same unit. The project management opportunity actually came up because years earlier, I'd expressed to one of my previous bosses that I was interested in, maybe trying out my hands at project management. And I bumped into him in the hallway one day. He remembered what I told him, and he mentioned that they were looking for a PM, so I ended up applying. And that's kind of the pathway I took for leadership. In terms of the reasons, I wanted to try something new. After 13 years in technical roles, I just wanted to try something a little bit different. I'd been tech lead and team lead, but I was open to a leadership role. And finally, I think I was open to the idea of being accountable for the work of those around me, as opposed to just my own work. Plus, I was joining a new department, so I thought in that sense I could have a positive impact in shaping the way the department operated.
Thank you, Rob, and all of you for your stories, which inspired us here today. I think it's important to know what happened when you get the manager role, when you finally get the leadership role, because it's hard to get there, but it's hard to stay there too. So I think the soft skills will help you maintaining and improving the role to be a great leader. This leads us to our next question about skills. So, Dee, what skills do you use most often in your leadership role?
Yeah, sure. I guess I spend the majority of my day communicating in one form or the other. So I would say that that would be, communication would be the top of the list of the things that I use the most. I tend to approach management in a very people first way. I believe that you can't really lead people effectively if you don't understand them, if you don't get to know them. So I think building these bonds, establishing these relationships is really important. Communicating, getting to know my teammates and understanding what makes them tick. Is it new technology? Is it status? Is it financial? Is it leadership opportunities? I think also understanding what scares them. What do they love? What do they hate? Why do they love these things? Why do they hate these things? What are their dreams? What are their aspirations? These are all, I think, incredibly important questions. And I also think it's important to sort of share that communication both ways. So to share those things about myself with them, which I think establishes trust, and it builds, again, this builds these relationships. I think that also enables me to just be better equipped to do my job. So my job is to help them navigate their careers, to get them on projects that they find meaningful, that they find, passion in, which will then ultimately lead them to achieving their goals. So yeah, ultimately my answer would be communication, because I think there's a lot of benefits that come from that.
Absolutely, Dee. Thank you. Very interesting. Now, Sodiq, what skills do you use most often in your leadership role?
I think very similar to what Dee said about communication. Mine, I would say, is more around listening and giving feedbacks to people, because like with listening, I'm able to deeply understand the people and the situations they find themselves. And also it gives me time to give them like constructive feedbacks on how they can improve themselves and what they've done really well, so they can learn from all of those experiences. What I've seen in most cases is, in my experience, is like engineers, sometimes they tend to forget some of the really good things they've done when they give account of the things they've worked on. So like my job is to make sure I notice those things. I don't let them slide, and I point it out to them and give them kudos when it's due. And also one other thing I would mention is empathy. I think the best way I can relate with people's situation most times is when I'm able to think about myself in their place. Like how much support do they need? How much support are they getting? How much feedback do they need? How much feedback are they getting, both from the managers and from their peers? So those are the two things I think really help me navigate my day-to-day with the engineers I manage.
Thank you, Sodiq. And Robert, what skills do you use most often in your leadership role?
Sure. So a little bit along similar lines as Dee and Sodiq. Some of the other, I think a lot of the skills that I rely on is around the idea of building trust. There's active listening and being fully present in the conversation that's taking place, trying to understand and retain what people have told me. I tend to take notes for everything because my memory is just terrible. I try to model the behaviors that I would expect out of my team members and peers and things like that. There's the piece about being honest and transparent. In some cases, this means providing honest feedback and delivering tough news. One important leadership skill that I think is in the case of, let's say, delivering tough news, let's say towards a customer or a stakeholder, it's also being solution oriented in the sense that you want to offer alternatives or mitigations or other options. And by doing that, I think what you're doing is you are signaling to them that you're invested in a positive outcome. And I think that helps to build trust as well.
Thank you, Rob. Excellent thoughts there. Thank you. Well, I assume there is a lot of joy in being a manager and having the opportunity to lead teams. But I assume too there is a lot of work, commitment, and challenges. This brings our next question about challenges. What has been one of your biggest challenges in your path towards a leadership role? Dee, please go ahead.
It's an interesting question. Yeah, it's definitely not been a journey without its challenges. So I'd say for me, one of the biggest challenges was really just finding my voice and then learning to use my voice. Speaking up and voicing my opinions, whether it was in a video call or in a room full of people, was not easy for me. I am definitely an introvert at heart. So it wasn't something that came naturally to me. And then also learning that, like, just because I found my voice, just because I'm using my voice, doesn't necessarily mean people are listening and that I'm going to be heard, and being okay with that, and being content with the fact that I've said my piece. But you know, to build this confidence, I definitely needed to step outside my comfort zone. I needed to be comfortable taking risks. It was really easy to join meetings, to listen in meetings, to attend meetings, but to speak up and say my piece was challenging, and it was scary. But it was in doing that I learned to be somewhat comfortable in being uncomfortable. And I think that's something that, you know, will be useful and is useful to me in, you know, throughout my career, but also in my personal life. There's constantly new people, new experiences, new situations that are happening, you know, that are somewhat uncomfortable, that are scary. I guess one of the examples would be speaking to you all today. I'm okay being somewhat uncomfortable, and it's you know, it helps me grow. But I would say that, yeah, finding my voice, being okay putting myself out there. And that, yeah, that would be my answer.
Thank you, Dee. I totally get it. I am introverted too. Now, Sodiq, what has been one of your biggest challenges in your path towards a leadership role?
That's an interesting question. Is when I think about it, there's a couple that come to mind, but I would like to talk about opportunity. So a lot of times, our individual experience during our career life is largely based on like the organization we work. So like it's a reflection of how the organization is set up, the people, the culture, and the process all around that. So sometimes the organization are set up to have like clear career growth path where it's clear for you when you move from a step to step, and the opportunities are just there. So you're able to grab onto them when that time comes. But some other times they're very rigid. The leadership hierarchy doesn't give you that sort of opportunity to move from like within a career band to the other one. For my story, I think the way I was able to, I find myself in one of those situations, and the way I was able to navigate that was like within my niche, the team I was then, I was able to find like some of the leadership traits I portrayed then, and I was able to test them out during that leadership thing. Like, how do I make sure we improve our Scrum processes? How do we make sure we have like effective feedbacks within the team? And sort of all of that was like an opportunity for me to try all of those processes. And when the opportunity really came, because it did came within the organization in a different team, I was ready to step up and become the manager of that team. So I think opportunity is like one of the biggest challenge I had, and that was how I was able to navigate it.
Excellent, Sodiq. So take the opportunity. Amazing. Thank you. Now, Rob, what has been one of your biggest challenges in your path towards a leadership role?
Sure. So early on, I was more of as a junior technical contributor, I really thought that my job was to deliver solely on technical things. Over time, I started to realize that by understanding and helping to solve my manager's challenges and department pain points, that might deliver more value than just me focusing on my technical work. I think a strong technical resource is great, but a strong technical resource who's investing energy into tackling larger departmental issues is even better. So that required a few things. It required me to try to understand that, first of all, not all challenges can be solved by doing technical work. I had to learn to be open to listening to what my manager was telling me and trying to understand the challenges that they saw. I needed to try to dig deeper to understand the motivations behind those types of issues and spending time to understand not just my role, but the department as a whole. So for example, while I was an integrator, my manager had asked me to improve and document some department processes. And it took me a long time, honestly, to really come around to truly care about why documentation had more value than some of my technical tasks. Digging deeper, I came to understand that documenting our processes was just a way that the department could market itself as an organized, mature unit. And when discussions were held around new mandates, that unit could more easily market itself. And so what that translated to was more interesting work for all of us, as well as jobs and headcount. So all that being said, building an understanding for my manager's challenges set me on the path towards leadership roles.
Excellent, Rob. Thank you for sharing this. I think one important part of leading teams is the team itself. Teams can be conforming from a variety of personalities and cultural backgrounds. So our next question is about multicultural teams. Dee, do you have any advice working or leading multicultural teams?
I'd say that the biggest advice I have is as a manager to be flexible, to understand that everyone's different. And as a result, the support they're going to need is also going to be really different, which ultimately brings me back to sort of my point of the importance of getting to know your team members, but also to encourage your team members to get to know each other and making that a priority, whether it be by one-on-ones or team events, but just making sure that they have the time to do that. I think that being adaptable and understanding your team's needs allows you to create a team culture where everyone feels heard and included, which I think is really important for a happy team. I've spent a lot of my career working remotely, and I'd say one of the more isolating experiences I've had in that time was dialing into meetings where everyone else was sort of in the room and I was one of the only people dialing in. I think it's hard to feel included and a part of in that sort of setting. So I definitely consider the communication mediums we use and try and make sure that those foster inclusion. Beyond that, I'd say understanding your team, their communication styles, their preferences is super helpful as well. Like, what is the right forum? Is everyone comfortable vocalizing things in a meeting, or should something be done via an email in a document? But ultimately, I think it all comes back to me is being adaptable, to understanding what works for one team might not work for another team.
Thank you, Dee. Yes, communication is so important. And what about you, Sodiq? Do you have any advice working or leading multicultural teams?
So this is really interesting because I've had to manage two multicultural teams across like two different organizations in the past. And one thing that's always been the same in those two organizations, in those two setups, and that is understanding and appreciating people's differences, which ties into what Dee said about like different people having different backgrounds, and naturally that means they have different perspectives to situations. Like, if you think about that in itself, it's a win. It's meant to be a strength because, you know, like statistics have shown us that diversity promotes innovation. But as a manager in that sort of a team, you want to ensure that people in the team they treat each other with respect, and you want to make sure they avoid stereotypical comments and jokes that might be misunderstood easily by other people. So that goes in line with fostering an environment where people are free to trust each other and they're free to express each other and speak up. You need to make sure you pay attention to little things that might bother them during your informal meetings, and also during your formal meetings, like a one-on-one. You want to make sure you listen to them and you're able to catch any little thing that might make them feel uncomfortable.
Excellent, Sodiq. Yes, understanding each team member and his diversity. Thank you. Now, Rob, it will be the same question for you. Do you have any advice working or leading multicultural teams?
Honestly, I think what Dee and Sodiq actually covered was fantastic. I'm trying to think from experience what some of the things that I had a team previously that was split across mainly Montreal. I had a couple of people in Spain and the Ukraine, and Ukraine, and I think one interesting thing was also appreciating those cultural differences. There's certain characteristics that people have been raised with. Some people are maybe more vocal, some people are less vocal, and some of it is linked to culture, but also understanding that from the cultural side, again, not everybody is the same. I would say that that was one of the most interesting things that I could have picked up, that I had an opportunity to learn related to that.
Excellent, Rob. So to sum up here, leadership skills and communication techniques play an important part in the success of a manager role. Moreover, the ability to lead a team will depend on managers' emotional intelligence. This leads us to our next question. So, Dee, what do you think about self-awareness, emotional intelligence, or IQ, and its importance in a leadership role?
Yeah, I think emotional intelligence is crucial in a leadership role. Although I do find being self-aware can be quite challenging. I do try as much as possible to be vigilant and self-reflect, but I definitely do rely on feedback from others to make sure that what I believe I'm projecting and how others perceive me sort of correspond and these match up. Since I weight the importance of communication and building relationships so highly, I think that these sort of go hand in hand. I think without a good grasp of emotional intelligence, establishing relationships with team members, for me at least, would be near impossible. And then ultimately, leading a happy team would be very, very challenging.
Thank you, Dee. Now I will ask the same question to Rob. What do you think about self-awareness, emotional intelligence, or IQ, and its importance in a leadership role?
Sure. So maybe just to build a little bit and complement what Dee was saying, I think a good leader will want to prioritize self-awareness. It relates to understanding and recognizing your own emotions as well as your strengths and weaknesses. And then as you gain a deeper understanding of yourself and your emotions, I think you're better equipped to understand how they affect your behavior, your decisions, how you make decisions, your mindset, your thoughts, and so on. So taking time to take inventory and reflecting on the past and understanding how you arrived there, maybe what emotions might have triggered certain things or whatnot, you'll hopefully be able to position yourself for more success the next time around. Just as providing regular feedback to others to help them improve is a big part of being a leader. I think it's equally important for us as leaders to get that feedback. And in this case, I think that self-reflection is one way to continuously improve.
Thank you, Rob. We are getting to the end of this panel discussion, and I think it's important to take advantage from your great experience. So having any advice from you is the best way. So Sodiq and Rob, what is one piece of advice you have for those in your audience currently in leadership roles or preparing to be a leader? You can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So individual situation would always be different. Like depending on where you find yourself, depending on your current organizational setup, like I said earlier. But three things that I think would be constant in any of those setups would be people, process, and projects. These three P's would always be constant. And I think about this in this order of importance. So I think about, as a leader, I think about like people as the greatest asset I have, and how much am I investing in these people? How much am I coaching them to be the best version of themselves? Without them, like all of the visions we have as a team would just be nothing but ink and paper. So I listen to them actively. I make sure I schedule meetings with them. I listen to them passively through all our sort of interactions day to day. But as for process, I just think about it like people. Only right now we're talking about intangible things. I strive constantly to understand the status quo and constantly find ways to improve them. This is the best way you can make sure your team is very efficient and they are set up for success. And finally, for projects, I believe that would come naturally as long as you get the people and process right. The projects would always change, they come and go, but the people behind that and the process behind that is rock solid. You can always crack any sort of problem you find yourself in.
Great, Sodiq. Now, Rob, what is one piece of advice you have for those in your audience currently in leadership roles or preparing to be a leader?
Sure. For me, I think it's investing to build a strong network of people around you. People that you can share positive and negative experiences with, that you can rely on for support and guidance, people you can just go and grab a coffee with, people you can collaborate with or promote, mutually promote each other's ideas or teams, people you can be vulnerable with, and also people that maybe keep you in check and let you know when you're veering off track or you're a little bit off base. I think a strong network enables opportunities that you might not have access to otherwise. Personally, I would say 3 out of the 5 distinct roles that I've held in my career are directly related to having a strong network. I mentioned earlier that the project management role for myself had popped up because I bumped into a previous manager of mine. Even when I made a move as a solution architect, it was some ex-colleagues who had referred me to their manager, and I ended up applying and it worked out. But more than that, I think just day to day, the countless projects and activities that we all are a part of, I think they are delivered much more efficiently. And to be fair, probably you have a lot more fun delivering those types of things when a strong network is in place.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Sodiq. Great advice. Now, and sadly, our last question. Sodiq, what resources do you suggest for new leaders, such as books, podcasts, apps, etc.?
So there's ton of very good resources on the internet these days, and one thing that really got me going during the whole pandemic lockdown was reading a lot of resources, getting a lot of coaching advices from other leaders. One of my favorite books that I would recommend is Start With Why. This book is by Simon Sinek. It talks about how great leaders inspire people to follow them, not just by giving them like motivational components like perks and compensations, but how to truly inspire them to believe in the leader's dreams and be able to follow through with their path. The book also talks about like why good leaders will ask the right questions about like why are we building what we're building, not just how are we building them or what are we building. Like you need to look beyond all of those. Another sort of resource I stumbled upon lately is Adam Brandt. So I heard he's got a ton of resources on philosophy, but I haven't like read any one of those myself. But I recently started following him on LinkedIn, and I've seen like he's got a number of good quotes on there. Finally, there is a podcast I would highly recommend. It's called Software Engineering Radio. If you get that, it talks about, they usually have different leaders from the tech industry to talk about engineering culture and deep dive into technologies and also leadership and all the other frameworks.
Thank you, Sodiq. I love podcasts. I'm taking notes about that. Thank you. Well, this is the end of this panel discussion. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you, Sodiq. Thank you, Dee and Rob, for your time and this wonderful information you provided to us. Now, our Q&A session. Please, participants, if you have a question, you can raise your hand or write it in the chat, and we can unmute you if you want to. So consider that this Q&A session, it will be just a couple of minutes in length. And for the panelists, feel free to just jump in and answer it as you wish. I'm checking if someone is raising hand or putting something in the chat. We have a lot of comments in the chat. I hope you can read them. In the meantime, someone is asking something. but seem to be great comments.
I see a question about being a leader is hard work. How do you create a team connection and trust with them? I think as a leader, one of the primary responsibilities we have is trying to understand the people that work in our team, like trying to understand them, meaning with our interactions, our formal meetings with them, trying to understand what motivates them, what are the areas they have opportunities to grow and so on. So giving them early on feedback and making sure they understand the feedback is coming from a very good and safe place will give them that avenue to trust you as a leader. And also welcoming them to give you feedbacks as well, but feedbacks goes both ways. When you solicit feedback from your direct reports, they tend to trust you and give you those feedbacks. So I believe that's one of the ways you can create a very safe and trust atmosphere in your team.
Thank you, Sodiq. We have another question here. When do you know that you are ready for a leadership role?
Maybe I could take a stab at that one. I don't know that I ever felt ready for a leadership role. There was an opportunity that came up. It seemed interesting, and I think I just decided, well, I'm going to give it a try. Like most other things, until you dive in and give it a chance, it's tough to know that you're actually ready. And to be fair, I don't think I'm actually ready today, and I'm in leadership. I think it's a work in progress, like everything else. You learn on the fly. I was really lucky. The first management opportunity that I had, I was surrounded by a couple of other managers that were brand new in the same team. We all kind of started together. We picked each other up. It didn't feel very isolating. Maybe in a team where you join as a new manager and there's other senior folks around, maybe it's a little bit different dynamic, but this was a great opportunity. And I would say take the chance. If you take the chance, the worst thing that'll happen is it doesn't work out. You maybe don't get that opportunity right there or whatnot, but you don't lose anything by trying.
Totally true, Rob. Thank you. I have another question here. How do you consolidate your profile to be a leader, and how do you keep upgrade your profile?
So
sorry,
Sodiq, want to go ahead?
Go ahead. I was actually going to refer to what you had answered before.
Oh yeah. So I was going to say, if by profile we're talking about like the path towards like making sure you're being ready for a leader, like that goes in line with what Rob just said about like preparing for it and then taking the opportunity when it comes. But just in addition to that, I think surrounding yourself with like great leaders and great coaches is one way you easily navigate it, because they have a lot of experience around how to manage people, how to coach and mentor people. So I feel like, like Robert said, there is really no end to learning. You keep learning on the go, and the more support you get and the more coaching you get from other leaders within your area, the better you become.
Excellent, Sadiq. We have another question here from Jesus Romero. What is the greatest weakness a leader can have?
It's really tough. I'll take a stab at it. I would say not looking out for your team, to be maybe selfish, to not be supportive potentially. Those are just some things that I think like they're instrumental in a team. So those are a couple things that I would not want to be. And that's how I'll phrase my, definition of weakness.
Thank you, Dee. We have another one. It's a big one. Gabriela Ureña is asking, how would you deal with a new employee peer who is struggling at work, not motivated at all, especially during this special pandemic situation? What would your approach to deal with this situation?
I can give it a try. I think the first thing is trying to understand like the why behind that. Like, why is someone motivated one day and the next day they are not? I guess a lot of the way people behave at work is a reflection of how and like what's going on in their personal life. So I feel like as a leader, you need to understand where they're coming from, the current journey they're on, what's going on outside of work, and what's getting them distracted, and try to solve that problem then if you can. I guess if you don't get to the root of the problem, it's really hard to solve the problem and deal with the situation.
Thank you, Sadiq. Excellent answer. Well, we have another one from Marina Gonzalez. What is the top 3 recommendations to be a leader in a short time? And she wants to be this question answering for each panelist, if it's possible.
Top three recommendations. I mean, I would iterate what Rob said about taking a chance, you know, even if you're not sure you're ready, you know, taking that risk. I think that would be, you know, one of the big recommendations is like, even if you're not 100% there, you know, if you're 90% there, if you feel like you're ready, you know, take that chance. Beyond that, I would say, yeah, I don't know. I'm stuck. I'm going to give you one because that's I think that one's a solid one.
Yeah, I'll take one as well, and maybe Rob can have one too. So for me, I would say one thing is like reading a lot of resources and also asking for support, which like learning can either be from actively reading resources or like being a mentee to other leaders. I feel like there's a lot of things we can learn from people that have been in the situation we find ourselves in the past. And they are able to give us support and like show us how to navigate those ways in form of coaching. So I think like having been a mentee with a very good leader would be one recommendation.
I love the last two. I think from my side, it would be try to understand what your leaders, the present leaders in your group, your department, your unit, try to understand what their pain points are. See what you can do to help with that. I think it's a easy way to show to that leadership team that you're ready for that next step.
Excellent. Well, we have another question here from Fabio Gil. One of the challenges I have found when leading people is the generation differences. Do you have any recommendations in terms of connecting to your younger generations, millennials, Gen Y?
Maybe I'll take a small stab at this one. I don't know that I have like a recipe for this. I think the first thing comes from being open and curious about everyone and avoiding making assumptions. Whatever generation or age or whatnot, it's easy to assume certain things. It's much tougher to just go in with a blank slate and let them present themselves to you. Everybody is different. I think if you look at maybe software developers, you might think, oh, well, software developers are like that. But in reality, every single one is unique. Everybody's kind of a snowflake, to be a little bit mushy on that side. But don't be shy to learn about each person as an individual. I think as you get to know them, I think it makes no difference what generation they're from. You'll get to know that person. And I think you'll be able to adapt to that person, and you'll be able to adapt your style if there's a need to do that.
If I can quickly add to that, I think like one thing I'd mentioned earlier about stereotypes is you want to stay away from it as much as possible. Like we shouldn't make these general assumptions about like a set of people in the same age category or from a certain part of the world. We want to invest more time as leaders to understand everyone individually, like Rob said. I think until then, like you wouldn't probably be able to have a good read on the person. So like trying to understand them, just the same thing Rob said.
Thank you, Rob and Sadiq. We will allow just 2 more questions and will be the end of this panel discussion. I have another from Juan Fernandez. Actually, being a leader, it's hard work. It's a hard work. how do you create a team connection and trust with them? How do you create a team connection and trust with them?
Okay, absolutely. I think one of the first steps to doing that would be to define what value means in your team. And this might start by trying to understand the different composition of your team. And this is an assessment you have to constantly do on like a regular basis, trying to understand the composition of the team, forming like some sort of like personal profile of people in your team, like what are your do's and don'ts. That would give you, an idea of what would form your team composition in terms of like the team value. And when the team value is defined, I feel if everyone is aligned to the values of the team, similar to the same way people are aligned to the culture of an organization, you would understand how to relate with each other, how to treat each other, and how to trust each other.
Thank you, Sodiq. And the last one from Gabriela Roca. Do you have any recommendations to retain and grow talent in the teams you are managing?
I think that's an excellent question. It's I think that's a really tough question to answer. I think that's what all of management hopefully is trying to do. I would say maybe a starting point is going back to the fact that everybody is different. I remember in a team that I was in a long time ago, it was a little bit disappointing because I think the person leading that team had aspirations to be, a VP or an executive. But not everybody in the team had the same type of aspirations. Some enjoyed doing development work. They didn't see themselves in other types of positions. So getting to know what your team's individual motivations are, what their aspirations are, and maybe being okay with they're comfortable in the position that they're in. I think that's a good step. And being able to support them in learning new things or whatnot is fantastic. I think one thing that can be tough from a management perspective is in terms of retaining talent is also knowing when it's best for a person to move on from your team. I think the intent is always to keep them within the same company. So if you think in terms of your overall company, it's better to keep someone in the company than to have them leave, even if it means that they're not sticking around in your team. So if you see opportunities that would benefit an individual for their career, I think it's important to try to get them into the right position, even if it means that they're not necessarily in your team.
Thank you, Rob. Well, this panel discussion is over. Thank you so much for your participation. It was amazing. I hope everybody can enjoy it. So we are moving to another part of this event. So please, if someone can help me put in the slide number 7 of the presentation. Well, now I want to present Maria Murillo, Yelp TechTalent Recruiting Team Technical Sourcer, and she focuses on seeking out diverse talent for product and engineering roles. She will be talking about engineering and product job openings and the interview processes at Yelp. Maria, welcome, Maria.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to speak a little bit more about Yelp and share about the opportunities. I'll be sharing my screen just momentarily. Perfect. Can everybody see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Now we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So as Brenda mentioned, my name is Maria and I'm a technical sourcer on Yelp's technical talent recruiting team. I'm currently based out of Montreal, Canada, and for the past 8 months, I have been focusing on, of course, seeking out diverse talent for product and engineering roles. And one of the main things that attracted me to Yelp when interviewing was a strong commitment to diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And after joining, I definitely quickly realized that this is continuously practiced through its efforts and focus on diverse hiring, equitable promotion practices, and of course, bringing inclusion to the forefront on the daily. I am really grateful for the opportunity to share more about this topic, as well as some of our current engineering and product openings with you all. And just to get started, so it's definitely not a secret that we have been extensively growing our team in Canada. And for the time being, we are actively seeking technical talent in the provinces that you see here on the map, including Ontario, Quebec, Alberta, and British Columbia. In terms of what is Yelp's stance on working remotely, as of 2021, Yelp will continue to grow and expand to be a remote first and distributed workforce. So this means that we will be implementing a hybrid model, which will allow eligible employees and new hires to work remotely full-time going forward. So employees will not be required to come to the office unless your role is officially office-based, examples, help desk support. And just feel free to always ask our team, recruiter that's working with you, depending on the expectations for the role, but generally it will be a remote first and distributed workforce. In terms of our offices and just planning for the future, so you have here a couple of the countries where we have offices, but for our Canadian headquarters, we will be opening an office in Toronto later this year or as early as 2022. And employees located in Toronto will have the opportunity to attend the office as little or as often as they wish. Our general vision now is to basically create a flexible in-person office environment that invites collaboration, creativity, coffee chats, and hallway conversations. And there will be no permanent desk assignments. So instead, Yelpers will be able to reserve a desk on days that they choose to work from the office. For other locations across Canada and across the different countries that we're in, we will have people being fully remote. So in my case, I'm based out of Montreal and I'm fully remote, but hopefully as things start to open up again and everything's safe out there, we get a chance to meet other Yelpers that are local to our city. And here I've listed a few of the current job openings. They are in, as you can see, in many different teams. I've listed in engineering and product management, product design, data science. So I definitely encourage everybody to visit our career page and explore all of our opportunities. You can also contact me directly and I'll have my contact information at the end of the presentation so you can take note of my email. I'm more than happy to share your interest with a recruiter or sourcer that's working on the role and get you started on our process. In terms of what the interviewing process is like, after, of course, you find a role that you're interested in and you submit your application, if there's a good fit, you will be contacted by one of our recruiting team members. And the process may differ depending on the role you're applying for, but generally here I put a quick breakdown of the process. So first, you'll be invited to jump on a brief recruiter chat for about 20 to 30 minutes, where they'll be sharing a bit more about the role, ask a few preliminary questions, and if there's a good fit, you move forward to a 30 to 45-minute phone interview with an engineering manager, product manager, hiring manager in general, who will further evaluate your technical skills and will answer any of the questions that you have. And finally, if you're interested in continuing and there's interest from the team, you'll be invited to a virtual on-site interview with typically a panel of 4 to 5 individuals. And this could take anywhere between 2 to 4 hours with breaks in between, of course. You would meet with each person individually for a period of about 30 to 45 minutes. And you'll be in constant communication with the recruiter throughout the process. We're more than happy to guide you on how to best prepare for each step. And just finally, for our engineering roles, we do have a 45-minute code test that we conduct on HackerRank, and you can choose the language of your choice that you're more comfortable with to complete that test. Of course, after the team has determined it's a good fit, we'll definitely go for a reference check and then hopefully have you join the Yelp team. And then, of course, as I mentioned, you can add me on LinkedIn at any time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And just finally and briefly, I just want to share what I love most about working at Yelp. As mentioned earlier, Yelp really truly focuses on inclusion and diversity and ensuring that every employee has the right to come to work every day and feel a sense of belonging. So we've done this through different, I guess, company-supported employee resource groups. And all employees at Yelp are welcome to all groups, as they are location agnostic, and they allow people from every part of the company to get involved. They're all voluntary, of course, and employee-led communities that serve as a resource for employees with shared social identities, characteristics, or life experiences. As brief two examples, we have Yelp Parents, which focuses on working parents to share and network their experience of a healthy work-life balance, and while advancing at the same time, of course, their careers in leadership or just any type of role at Yelp. And we also have Somos Yelp, which is a space for Hispanic and Latinx Yelpers to connect and learn and lift each other up. And sorry, and maybe a little bit out of time, just quickly. Again, what it's like to be, I guess, part of Yelp and a Yelper. The last year has been a test for all of us in more ways than one, and Yelp has really made an effort to keep us connected and supported even in this remote world. So as an example, we had our Spirit Week in August, and these are just a few moments from that. It was basically a week-long celebration where we had a chance to connect through virtual activities, bingo, comedy, music festivals, and of course have theme days and prizes that brought us together to hyper Yelp spirit. And finally, and thanks to Tencent and our events and partnerships team, we have also been able to stay connected through our Yelping from Home series, where we have a space to share and learn more about our projects, initiatives taking place at Yelp. These events are also open to everyone outside of Yelp, so I encourage everybody here on the call to stay on the lookout on our social media and sign up for these events, as they have various different topics. And yeah, that's pretty much all from me. I'm looking forward to meeting some of you and answering any questions that you have about our roles, or you can add me on LinkedIn if we run out of time here today.
Thank you, Maria. Excellent information. Looks like a dream job. Thank you so much. Now we will have our Q&A session. The rules are the same as our previous Q&A session. If you want to do a question, please raise your hand and you will be on mute, or you can write it on the chat. We have a question here. How are diverse perspectives and backgrounds embraced, include and supported at Yelp? Included and supported at Yelp.
That's a great question, and as I mentioned, that's one of the main reasons that I was attracted to Yelp, and even in the interviewing process, it was something that was highlighted. But overall, I really like that after joining Yelp in the past 8 months, I have really seen it. I guess giving everybody an equal chance for success is very important at Yelp. I guess in the past, we relied on people to raise their hand if they were interested in advancing in leadership roles or anything like that. And sometimes, depending on diverse backgrounds, people were maybe not willing or ready to ask for these opportunities. So now we have implemented a place where everybody at Yelp receives a note when they're ready to be asked to, or prepared to move into leadership opportunities, letting them know they're qualified and inviting them to apply. And we've seen a lot of diversification in leadership overall, a lot of representation across the company, and increasing diversity of perspectives. We really believe that having a diverse team really it's key for success, as we have different opinions and different viewpoints, different life experiences. So that, I would say, that's one of the main aspects that we've seen to implement diversity.
Thank you, Maria. Great answer. Someone else want to ask something to Maria?
Can you share like maybe a link to at the site or the web page in Yelp to see like all of the positions, or
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Should I share on the chat?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Maria, I have a question.
Yes, hi.
The question is, the job seekers need to be permanent resident or citizen, or you are accepting a work permit?
For the moment, we have for Canadian citizens, permanent residents, or people on an open work permit. Eventually, moving forward, as we continue to grow our team in Canada, that may change. But for the time being, yes, it is open work permit and as I mentioned, PR and citizens.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We have another question here from Gabriela Roca. Do you have opportunities for professionals with non-technical background?
Yes, of course. So that's in a lot of different roles, even business analysts, sales department, marketing, all across. I am part of the technical talent team, so that's why I listed mostly of the technical roles there. However, we have a separate recruitment team that would be happy to assist you in learning more about these roles. And you can find all these opportunities on the link that I share here on the chat. You can search for different jobs in departments, and you'll be able to contact someone from those teams.
Thank you, Maria. I think you provided all the information we need, and we are ready to apply. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It was amazing, and thank you, you, Dee, Sodiq, and Rob, for all the information and give us the opportunity to know more about you and to know more about this important role, the project manager role.
Thank you very much, Brenda. We invite you to our next online event. So it will be a networking event, the Woman in IT and Business, Shining Everywhere. It's on September the 30th, and the Cisco and the Hybrid Work Future for All. It will be on October 5. So just keep an eye on our social media for our online events. Also, well, cheer to our volunteers, last but not least. Cheers to our volunteers and also the Yelp team, the panelists, the speakers. Thank you very much that helped us to make this event possible. Thank you so much for all your hard work. And well, if you want to learn more about Hispanotech, you can follow us on social media, visit our website, and become our member.